Well, now that you've heard about the different assets that support using process frameworks from APQC, let's talk about how they fit together. We talked about things that are very process-centric, the process lifecycle, the process analysis and design methodology, the 7 tenets of process management. And so those assets in particular help when you're trying to leverage a framework to organize your processes, to do analysis and identify and prioritize where you might have improvement opportunities, and even manage the improvement and change. You may be trying to design or demonstrate the connectivity of end-to-end processes and how that can then be used to coordinate across different departments and functions. And so the process analysis and design methodology can be certainly supportive of then going through that type of activity. Whereas if you're thinking more about process governance, the roles, the responsibilities, etc., that's where the 7 tenets asset really comes into play. Let's think about how can we now go out there and leverage the framework to say, who are my process owners? Identify them, onboard them, but ensure they also understand then the role, the responsibilities, and how they can then capture and coordinate their processes in the context of other processes. So those top 3 assets that are there are really focused on process-centric type behaviors. Process framework is so much more powerful in that it also allows you to get into content management and understanding the life cycle of content from its creation through its validation, its update and publishing cycles, and its now access and use. So those are key processes, and the process framework not only defines what those processes are, so you can now make sure you understand how they're applied and used, but it also can then be used to say when we're now going out to identify content creation needs. Well, those needs are different based on the different processes in the framework. The content created, stored, and used by process design, the content that's created for product development, the content that's created and used by customer support, different types of content. So you can now leverage the structure of the framework to say what are the content needs and uses, where is the content created, and is there multiple processes that it's used by, modified by, etc. For instance, contracts. There's a set of contract management processes, but contracts are created and used all over your organization. So you can now connect the content type of a contract, an agreement, a non-disclosure agreement, any type of legal contract, to where in the other processes. So connecting process to content is very powerful. The structure of a process framework is wonderful to help. So there's a couple of different uses from a content, and we can extend that also use to the knowledge and knowledge management cycle. How can I now think about the knowledge flow and enablement through core skills, experiences, etc., necessary to ensure I've staffed the processes correctly? Well, here's a catalog of the processes. What are the staffing needs, the core competencies and capabilities and skills, the job requirements, so to speak, of people performing that work? It allows you to connect the dots there and even then connect that into job descriptions, staffing and hiring, or development of our staff to say, here's the skills you need to do more or to become the SME or to transition now to the role of doing that other process work. And if that's what you aspire to and it's your career path, here's now how you need to grow your knowledge and skills and how we can support you. So there's both that kind of flow of knowledge through the processes you can look at. The knowledge mapping example previously talked about that, but there's also then the knowledge enablement necessary to ensure that people are ready to do the job correctly and collectively. So those are ways that the knowledge views are also then connected to that. And then the final way that we talk about it is in the measurement and benchmarking area, right? We need to understand from a benchmarking perspective, how can we measure performance, cycle time, the level of resource needs that are necessary to get a certain volume of work done, full-time equivalents. And so in doing benchmarking, whether it's internal across different parts of your organization, aligning them to measuring the processes, standard measures across the common processes, and then comparing, benchmarking between them to say, are we seeing different levels of performance for the same amount of work across different teams or regions? And if so, is it driven by localization needs, or is it driven by inefficiencies and lack of standardization? So connecting benchmarking through measurement and aligned measurement leveraging the structure of the framework, can then identify whether you need to go and focus on it's driven by a root cause of a knowledge or skill deficiency. It could be driven by poor access to content. It could be driven by poor process design. So connecting these together through the common structure of the framework allows you to, whether you're looking at it through the process lens, the content lens, the knowledge lens, and others like technology, etc., you can come together. But these assets at APQC connect through the framework the ability to understand, organize, identify improvement opportunities, make those changes, and now measure to show that we've made the impact and we are at the level of performance that makes sense, that top quartile if that's what we aspire to. So it's a very, very strong set of tools that when you're looking and leveraging frameworks, you can now drive the outcomes and the values that are most important to your organization.